Am I the a-hole for telling my friend I don't want to be her bridesmaid anymore? My friend Mary and I have known each other since we were children. We've grown apart over the past few years, but she still considers me important enough to make me a bridesmaid. Her wedding is set to be in 3 weeks. One reason why I sort of distanced myself from her was because of her treatment of my relationship. My boyfriend Jack and I have been together for 3.5 years. He's a wonderful person, and there is no doubt in my mind that this is the man I want to marry. But Mary is under the impression that Jack is too good for me. Jack comes from a very wealthy background. His parents are certainly very wealthy. He was practically guaranteed a lavish life from the moment he left the womb. This is in stark contrast to my childhood. I grew up in a low-income neighborhood, often wondering where my next meal was or how I was gonna help pay the bills at a young age, etc. I'm grateful and proud for where I am today. Jack is considered to be conventionally attractive, always looking like he should be on some magazine or a billboard somewhere. Jack's good looks and background have led Mary to believe that Jack deserves better than me, as according to her, there's no way I could have pulled someone so attractive and rich. It's pretty disheartening to hear those things constantly, and it does kind of take a toll on you and a friendship. Whenever Jack is around, she's quite polite and respectful, never once making those comments. Eventually, the comments stopped. Mary invited me for lunch with her fiancé and his friend, Gary. From the moment I arrived, Mary and her fiancé were consumed in their own conversation, paying no attention to both of us. It was fine, as Gary seemed to be a great lad with great chat. He asked me why I was single, and I told him that I was in a happy, committed relationship. He was very taken aback by my answer. He told me that Mary had set up a blind date, double date of sorts for the both of us. I was very confused and slightly angry. I didn't want to be confrontational at lunch, especially in public, so I just carried on with the lunch. Luckily, Gary wasn't upset and ended up making a few jokes about the whole ordeal. I called Mary later on the day to ask her a ton of questions about why she thought it was okay to do that. At first, she tried to deny it, but then she tried to justify it by saying that Gary is a man who's more in my league, and since he was also a groomsman, we needed to get to know each other better. I was shocked by her bluntness, so I just told her that I didn't want to be her bridesmaid anymore. Granted, it was a pretty impulsive decision, but I still stand by it. Mary didn't take it well, trying to apologize and saying that it was a mistake. It's been a few days, and her fiancé has been texting me, asking me to suck it up for the wedding. I feel petty and conflicted right now. Edit. Jack knows about the date. I wouldn't keep that from him. Now, for the top comments. You are so absolutely not the a-hole, and you should have dumped this friend the minute she told you Jack was too good for you. Don't let her change your mind. This, not the a-hole. She sounds kind of jealous, to be honest. But this conniving behavior is insane. Be sure to block any more flying monkeys coming your way about just suck it up for the wedding. The phrase flying monkeys gave me a small laugh. Thanks. This girl is not your friend. She's jealous your partner is good looking and well off. I would not only not be her bridesmaid, but I also wouldn't attend a wedding. She has no respect for your relationship. I would simply tell her fiancé that you stand by your decision, and he should be questioning whether or not he wants to marry someone that acts that way. Not the a-hole. What the hell? Is she jealous or something because it strongly sounds like it? She not only set you up, she also hurt Gary over this. This is absolutely terrible. And if this is some weird, perfect, upstaging wedding ploy, she needs to stop now. It is entirely understandable to distance yourself from someone who gaslights and manipulates you like this. She has been actively insulting you. Like, it wasn't because she was worried about you. She thinks you aren't good enough and don't deserve him. This is absolutely disgusting to say to someone you consider a friend, and it might hurt your relationship if you have this going on. She was willing to lie to one man. What if she takes that further? Run and don't look back. This woman is vile. God, that's so true. Gary was probably looking forward to the date and was starting to like her and then gets shut down. Not really, but you know what I mean. Does Mary's fiancé not seeing what a total jerk she is? Hey, let's get your friend's hopes up, even though she's in a relationship. Maybe she'll break up with her boyfriend for a guy she's met once. Like, huh? Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my friend that her ignorance is astounding and not removing a post that offends her? Yesterday, it was Father's Day here in the US. I came across a post on Instagram that said something along the lines of, "Thank you, Dad, for coming to this country with nothing and giving me everything." It was supposed to be from the point of view of an immigrant's kid. It resonated with me and I reposted it to my story. A friend of mine that I haven't seen or spoken to in a while messaged me privately and said, "You're white and your parents are rich. What are you talking about, LMFAO?" I wasn't in the mood to justify my actions to her, so I just said, "This post applies to me and I'm very grateful for my dad. Have a great day." She proceeded to go on a tangent about how me posting that was extremely insulting to her because my parents are white and rich, and her parents are from Mexico and I have no idea what I'm talking about, and I've never struggled and neither have my parents who aren't even real immigrants. I proceeded to tell her that no, I didn't struggle growing up because my parents struggled for years before they had me. They both immigrated to the US from Europe with a penny to their name at 18. My dad worked 2 full-time jobs for 20 years, so my mom could go to school and only have to work 1 job instead of 2 like him. They worked their butts off without any help. It wasn't fun for them, or easy at all. By the time I was born, they had finally managed to get a house, and they started a business when I was about 5 that was successful. So growing up, I was very fortunate, and I have been extremely grateful that they worked hard so I could have a good childhood. She then said that my story was nice and all, but they still didn't have to experience being a real immigrant. I'm sorry, what? They had to go through the same process as everyone else, and couldn't go back to their home country for 7 years because they were waiting for citizenship. I asked her to tell me how they weren't real immigrants. She said it didn't count because they came from Europe. I wasn't gonna sit there and play immigrant competition with her, so I told her that her ignorance was astounding, and I was done with this conversation. She replied telling me to take the post down, but I didn't. The post was showing gratitude to an immigrant parent for working hard to provide a good life for their kids, and that's exactly what happened here. So I'm leaving it up. My other friend says I should be more sensitive to the situation and understand what she was trying to say. Am I the a-hole here? What was she trying to say? Are there degrees of being an immigrant? She was immigrant-er? Not the a-hole. I think she's implying that because they don't face racism, they are not real immigrants, which is BS. While she is right that white immigrants and POC immigrants have wildly different experiences immigrating in majority white countries, and just for context, I'm a white immigrant from a white country to a white country, that doesn't mean she could give you a lecture. It's not like you said that you went through discrimination based on your race, you just reposted it because it also factually applied to you. Her going off in some rant about real immigrants is dumb and not relevant at all to what you were saying. Not the a-hole. I don't know where Opie's family is from, but you also have to consider that around the time that I suspected Opie's parents moved here, 80s/90s, a lot of Eastern European immigrants were subject to a whole lot of xenophobia and discrimination, thanks to the still rippling after effects of McCarthyism and anti-communist sentiment in the wake of the Soviet collapse. Of course, this isn't applicable if Opie's parents were from Western Europe, but it's still something to think about. Yep, my wife is from Bulgaria. She still gets the commie moniker tossed at her occasionally. That or people think she's Russian and that she must be a spy using me for information. Not the a-hole. This is not the Immigrant Olympics. Bless your parents. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my friends it must be nice to have people pay for stuff? I have 2 former roommates/friends, Michelle and Amy, obviously fake names. Michelle works in retail management and has been with her company for years, so she has a lot of PTO. She's also married to a man who makes a good amount of money. Amy has been on disability since an accident and also has her mom financing most of her life. I'm single, live on my own, and work as a year-round preschool teacher, started this year. Therefore, I have very little PTO. And I don't have a lot of disposable income like they do. We all live in different states. In December, Michelle had a miscarriage. I was there for her as much as I could be from a distance, but I was guilted on more than one occasion that I didn't come to see her. 1, I couldn't afford a flight. 2, I had just finished my probationary period at work and had no personal time off yet. They then tried to plan a few trips which again, I couldn't take time off for. They would get frustrated with me and I'd try to explain I can't take off with no notice. I kept suggesting weekend trips, but they said those weren't worth it. Finally, we all agreed on a trip for the 4th of July weekend. I have some PTO now to take off that Friday and Monday, and I'm obviously off on the weekend days. I was super excited. Then Michelle canceled due to personal reasons. Wouldn't elaborate. And I understood. Said I was there for her, etc. Yesterday, I saw Amy post on Facebook that she can't wait to see Michelle over the 4th of July weekend. I was confused and texted Michelle asking if the trip was still on or not. I didn't get a response for a while, and finally Michelle said they didn't want me coming. They were mad that it took me so long to agree to a trip, and she still wasn't over me not visiting her during her miscarriage. I got really upset and explained myself. Amy chimed in, group chat, and said I care more about work than them. I snapped and said it must be nice to have a husband who can pay for these trips and a mom to pay your bills. They both got mad, and no one's spoken since. I'm starting to feel bad and wonder if I sunk too low. Maybe I'm being a bad friend? Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Absolutely not the a-hole. Your friends are not trying to understand you, but still want you to follow their every wish. That doesn't happen. That's very entitled behavior on their part. If they can't even respect you, you'd be better off without them. Sorry that some of us live in a reality and can't drop everything at a moment's notice. Opie needs better friends. And since she doesn't live close, she has a perfect way to break free. Block them, Opie. Make new friends where you live. Not a hole. Your friends are basically ignoring your circumstances while only caring about theirs, putting their needs above your constraints. If they are truly friends, they would have recognized these constraints of yours and be more understanding. It sucks to suffer a miscarriage, but you being there for her doesn't mean you must physically be there. You were there for her morally and also virtually. If she truly needs someone to be there physically, why can't she visit you instead and have a change of pace at the same time? Why must it be you don't have PTO yet to do so? The self-centeredness of both of them is so appalling. I've often wondered this, why don't they come to me? And I think it's because I live nowhere exciting. They both live in big tourist areas, so it's fun. I live close to touristy things, but there's not a whole lot to do. So I guess I'm not exciting enough? Not today, hole. Glad you didn't spend more money on the trip as they are not friends. These witches are horrible, judgmental elitists. Really disgusted in their behavior, but now you have more time to take care of you. Last story is titled, Am I the a-hole for not teaching or helping a child learn how to swim? For context, I'm a 14-year-old girl who is pretty small and could look 12. I go to a private pool with a friend, a 13-year-old boy, a lot due to the hot weather where I am. All the lifeguards know us, and it's pretty fun when I go. More of our friends and their siblings are there most of the time. It's not very crowded, but still pretty big, with a 2-feet side and a deep end is 8 feet. I went a couple of days ago with my friend. When we got there, his sister and her friends were there too. It was just us, as it was Sunday, and most people here are Christians. We did our normal thing, like playing games, etc. This is where the story starts. All of us are really strong swimmers, so we like playing called alligator. Basically, all you do is someone stands on the edge, and everyone else is on one side. And if the person looks back and sees someone swimming, they jump in and chase the person who started and the people who had to go by force. There are more rules, but that's the basic rules. We did a few rounds until when a lady who was in her mid-40s with her 2 kids, one 12 and one 6. She signs in and sees us playing. She puts her 6-year-old in the shallow end alone and tells her 12-year-old something I didn't hear. I make it to the side they're on, and the lady looks at me and she tells me to watch her 12-year-old and tells me her daughter will be playing the game with us. I thought that was a little bold of her, but I was fine with someone playing with us. Note, I had no clue who they were. The girl was pretty scared of the water. I thought it was odd, but she might have been worried about the coldness of the water. She got in and stood on the ladder you used to get in. By the time everyone was on the side, the round started and the girl didn't go. I asked if she okay and she started right when I asked her that. She fell to the bottom. She didn't know how to swim. She was panicking underwater and the lifeguard jumped in to pull her up. We all stopped in our tracks. The lifeguard talked to the lady. After that, the lady came up to me and said that I needed to ask her child if she could swim and teach her. And we should be doing it in the shallow end because the deep end is too dangerous. I told her she should not be letting her child into a pool in the deep end knowing she can't swim. She called me a bad person and left with her kids. There's way more to the story, but that's the basics. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. What is wrong with that, mom? It's not your responsibility to teach a random child to swim. She was way out of line for all of it. You don't even have to play with strangers' kids. Former lifeguard here. Parents go to these pools so they can ignore the kids. Lifeguards essentially babysit 40-plus kids and adults because a lot of them don't know how to act or think they can roughhouse the same as they would at home. At the same time, lifeguards are not paid enough for their skill. This surprises me absolutely 0% that this parent did this. Not at a-hole. Not at a-hole. The mother is an idiot. It's not a child's job to teach another child how to swim. Come to think of it, even though I know how to swim, especially a stranger. What is she thinking? She's lucky you're good kids and not a bunch of bullies, or this could have gone really bad even with a lifeguard there. Hell, even if Opie was a lifeguard, this wouldn't fly. When I was a lifeguard, we would tell parents they had to be in the water if their child couldn't swim. A lifeguard's job is to watch the whole pool in case of emergencies, not babysit one particular child. Also, it's not okay to even put a child in a situation that could lead to drowning, like this mom did. Not at a-hole. For context, I'm a 14-year-old girl who is pretty small and could look 12. The lady came up to me and said that I needed to ask her child if she could swim and teach her. Even if you were a 42-year-old Olympic swimmer playing in the pool, rather than a 14-year-old kid, that a-hole mom doesn't have the right to tell you that you have to do anything for or with her kids. I can only hope that this a-hole mom doesn't get her kids killed by dumping her parental responsibilities on total strangers. Am I the a-hole for strongly correcting a lie my parents told my sister? I'm 25 female, 7 years older than my sister, 18 female. When she was a baby, my parents came up with this story that I had asked them every day for a little sister until she was born. Now, I can't speak for 4 years old or younger me, but I know by the time I started kindy that I had no interest in having a sibling. I'd never ever ask for a sister. Lol. I had friends who hated their siblings, and that made me think I was lucky to be an only child. My parents pushed it so hard, and would tell me I should spend more time with my sister and take better care of her since I had wanted her so badly. My sister bought the whole thing, and if I pushed back on the lie, my parents would threaten to ground me. When I was 15 and she was 8, I told her that our parents were lying, and I had to ask for a sister every day, and my parents grounded me for a week. They told me I had broken my sister's heart and it was a mean-spirited thing to say. I told them it was their lie, not mine, and they said it brought my sister joy and that should be all that matters. My sister took that lie as meaning we should spend all our time together, and she hated when I didn't want to. It was especially horrible because she was clingy as hell, and she would have meltdowns when I didn't want to take her places. She practically wanted to move in with me when I left my parents' house. So a couple of weeks ago, my sister was asking to move in with me and I told her no. She said, "Come on, I had wanted her so badly and I should want to be around her more than I seem to. That it seemed crappy to want her so badly, and then discard her like she's not my sister." I told her to cool it with the exaggeration, and plenty of siblings live apart and don't spend every waking moment together. She told me most siblings don't ask specifically for a specific sibling like I did. And I told her I'd never ask. That mom and dad made that up when she was a baby and refused to let me say the truth. And when I did, when she was 8, they claimed I was lying and punished me for it. She told me it was a lie, and that she didn't get why I was such a dirty liar. I told her to listen to me clearly. I never asked for a sibling. I never begged them for a sister, and I didn't wish her into existence and that I hated the lie. She was crushed and ran to our parents, who again acted like I was a monster. She's lapping up the lies from them and told me she hopes I come to accept the truth someday. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Just cut them all off for about a year and see how much they can deny it then. Boom, solved. If you then resume low contact and she remotely brings up that you wanted a sibling again, do the same until it drives it into her skull by force. I guess I'm just an a-hole, but I always hated clingy cousins and I'm an only child. This would do my head in. Not an a-hole. I had the same thought. Why deal with this crap? If they still want to lie about it, they could do that alone. Just cut contact for a few months. If people want to behave like a-holes, you don't have to stick around. They can do that without you being present, and maybe then they think about it and come to the conclusion that they were being a-holes. Your sister is in denial, and because your word is painted as unreliable, this is shown by your sister immediately assuming you're a dirty liar. She's never gonna believe you over them, because your parents have always invalidated what you've said, making it seem to your sister that you're just a liar all the time. You need to give her some truth. Not the a-hole. What sort of parents would justify having another children with? My 4-year-old wanted a sibling. Lol. Do you insert whatever you want here because your 4-year-old wants it? Doubt it. So why create another small human? Because the 4-year-old said so? Also, even if you have a great relationship with your siblings, it does not mean you are obliged to spend every single moment of your life with them. You and your sister are two different separate people. And I can't even say I did say it then. Just not 100% sure. Not the a-hole. Your parents are. And your sister has attachment issues. I mean, even if you would have said you wanted a little sibling when you were young, that was 20 years ago. That doesn't mean that you always wanted her to be by your side 24/7. Especially since you're not kids anymore. I think that's weird, and your sister needs to grow up. It sounds to me like your parents lied to her to give some of the responsibility in raising her to you, which is just wrong. Sister has attachment issues because her parents told her, for 18 years, that the main reason she exists is because her sibling wanted her to. They dodged responsibility like professionals. Can you imagine being told your entire life that the entire reason you exist is because your sibling wanted you to, then finding out that it was a lie? Sister is not an a-hole. The parents, however, are massive a-holes. Next story. Am I the a-hole if I lock my freezer full of ice cream when my sister and her teen kids come to visit? My house is sort of the place where most family meetups happen. I kept my parents' house and have lived there since then. I've noticed that my sister doesn't really have a good handle on her kids in terms of discipline. The past 2 times that they have come, they have eaten so many of my ice cream bars and they always make such a freaking mess. It's aggravating. I would be fine if they grabbed one from the freezer, but they grab like 5 each, eat them, then grab a few more for the road. I know my sister isn't the best with discipline, so I didn't want to bother with her. She wouldn't do much anyway. So I just got a lock for the freezer and locked it. And when they came earlier today, they complained to me that it was locked, and I just told them, I know. They complained to their mom, and then she came over and said that it was locked. I again said that I know, so she asked if the kids could get some ice cream. But I told her no, and told her why. She then started saying things like me treating her family horribly, saying that it's just ice cream, and I'm a cheap prick for not sharing it, things like that. She was very angry for a lot of time, and then she just left with her kids. Am I the a-hole for doing that? Not the a-hole. Do you think she understood that it wasn't about the price of the ice cream, but rather the kids' entitlement of just grabbing it from your freezer and making a mess? Because that's what it was about. Seems like she missed that. She was pretending that the reason was one that she could be justified in berating Opie about. By latching onto that, she can pretend to herself that it's totally not because her flock of seagulls are greedy, grabby, messy, and disciplined gobblers. Not the a-hole. She needs to parent her children and teach them manners. They should not be acting like pigs or making a mess. It's your ice cream and you can do whatever you want with it. I would have done the same thing, honestly. I do need to ask though, did you ever tell your sister that her children acted this way? I know you don't want to parent them, but that could have been a good thing to do if you didn't. I suggest if they come over again, maybe you can unlock the freezer and take out 1 bar for each of them to have, as long as they ask politely. My mom would have broken my fingers if I opened up a fridge or freezer when I was a guest in someone's home. Unless I was told go get a specific item from this location, I did not go into other people's property. Hosts put on what is on offer, and you get what you are given. You don't go and fridge dive for something better. And as for the kid's mother, she shouldn't need to be told what her kids are doing. She should see what her kids are up to because it's her responsibility to supervise them. The OP is not the a-hole. Her sister needs parenting classes. Not the a-hole. If her kids need ice cream, she can buy it and bring it. It's not like your kids are eating it in front of them and refusing to share. They've obviously come to see your freezer as free reign. Seriously, OP isn't a store. Next story is titled, Would I be the a-hole if I don't invite my brother-in-law and his wife to my birthday dinner? My husband and I are planning a dinner for my 30th birthday. I get along really well with most of his family. As a former foster kid, it means a lot that my in-laws are basically like my parents now and truly love and accept me. I also get along really well with my husband's sister. She has treated me like the sister she never got as a kid but always wanted, And she has been a great source of support for me through some stuff surrounding my birth mom that came back to haunt me a couple of years ago. The issue I have is with my husband's brother and his wife, and how they allow their kids to behave. It's an issue everyone has, but they have tolerated it for themselves because they love them and don't want to lose out on a son/daughter-in-law and grandkids or brother, sister-in-law and nieces. My husband even has problems with them because of the crap we go through with them. The problem is, they do not parent their girls, 7, 5, and 2, and expect everyone else to deal with the fact. The girls throw food, spit food, break stuff, and spoil others' food if they can't have a taste of it. And they will ask even if it's the same thing as what they have. They got us kicked out of restaurants before. Their parents will tell them to stop, will offer them bribes to stop, but when they still act that way, they will just let it happen. Right before lockdown hit, we were all at my in-laws for a family dinner, and the oldest, who was 5, threw a plate at the wall because she got chicken tenders instead of chicken nuggets. When my mother-in-law tried to step in, she picked up a bowl and smashed it into the table, screaming in her grandmother's face. My brother-in-law sat there like nothing had happened. He only removed her when his dad snapped and said to be a man and step in. And not only that, but they will show up with kids to non-kid events and let their kids act up. Each and every one of us has tried talking to them, has tried to intervene, but it goes nowhere. So when my husband's brother asked about my birthday, I said we weren't sure yet. But then my sister-in-law's husband slipped up and mentioned the dinner, and he came back and asked. So I said I wasn't sure I would invite them because of their kids' behavior. He's furious and told me I shouldn't exclude family and should have spoken to him first. Only I have before. Not about their birthday, but in general about these issues. The rest of my in-laws have my back, and sister-in-law's husband apologized for spilling the beans. I still feel bad despite the support because I could see his feelings were hurt, and I worry about hurting the girl's feelings being excluded when the rest of the family isn't. Would I be the a-hole here? Not the a-hole. 1. You tried talking to them. 2. Everyone else has tried talking to them, so it's clearly a pattern and not something you're exaggerating. 3. Those kids sound like nightmares. And as a parent, I know you just miss out on stuff sometimes because of your kids. My son was awful at 3 years old, and we basically didn't do anything for a full year. He grew out of it. 4. It is your birthday. Don't make concessions on your birthday for people that don't respect you. It's supposed to be about you, not them. Time for your brother-in-law and his wife to start seeing the consequences of being crappy parents. Life is full of consequences, and they better buckle in because they have a lot coming. About time. Not the a-hole. You would not be the a-hole. Jesus, their kids sound insufferable. What kind of adults will they grow into? The lack of discipline and good parenting is the main issue here. But your sister-in-law's husband somehow doesn't seem to realize that. He should be embarrassed of himself for not being able to have kids who can act normal. No wonder you don't want them at your birthday. My brother-in-law and his wife, you mean? Sister-in-law's husband is a good man. Just slipped up. But brother-in-law and his wife? Yeah, they don't seem to care all that much. Jesus! Getting kicked out of places were not enough of a hint for them? When I grew up, we had restaurant rules, which was basically other people are not here for your crappy behavior. But yeah, do not invite them. Action speaks louder than words, and they have shown how much effort they care to put into having a good relationship with their family. Tom family told them the truth about why no one wants them around. If you really want to give them a chance, lay down the rules. Hard. In writing. No throwing, no screaming, no spitting, etc. And if they break the rules, they got to go. No second chances. Maybe lay those rules out for the next family event, not for this one. The time to begin this isn't at a public space for someone's birthday that has already made it clear they don't want this disruption. Maybe missing out on particular events is needed. It takes a family. And perhaps this family is the kid's only shot at learning about consequences and behavior. Next family event, maybe tell the parents, we expect you to parent and we expect them to behave in a reasonable manner. We love you all. We would like to enjoy your company without the mayhem. If they don't listen, tell them it's time to go. Keep this up until they figure it out or stop coming. I hope you're definitely not the a-hole. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for saying that a 2-person household was not a family? My stepdaughter's mother's house is very different from a normal household. She's very much a bare minimum kind of person. The only truly important things are work/school and appointments. As long as you're on time for those and doing well, have good hygiene, and are keeping your bills paid, everything else is pretty much optional and usually not worthwhile to do. Their house is 3 bedrooms, but it's small, and unless they happen to have a guest, it's just her and her mother. My stepdaughter's mother has a maid service come in once a month to do a clean because she's too busy with a standard 9-to-5 job. Her standards are basically just pick up after yourself, laundry once a week, do the dishes as they come in, and sweep/vacuum if you think it needs it. In an actual family, these standards would lead to the house being an absolute dump. But because her house is all of 2 people, the house is perfectly fine. Our family is 11 people when my stepdaughter is here. My husband and I, our other 4 kids, my sister and her son, and my parents. So we run our household very differently. We have things like routines and chore lists. Aside from the past year, we have kids in sports. I'm sorry that we don't have a private bathroom for each person in the house, and that we have actual tasks that need to be done in the house every single day and can't just get done tomorrow. She has never adjusted well in transitions and thinks we're strict for having actual standards. I'm sorry, but things just are not the same when it's 2 people versus a family of 10 to 11. It's not just do whatever like it can be with 2 people. After years of arguments, I finally snapped and told her that I'm sorry she has to spend so much time with an actual family. Now everyone is mad at me for not going along with the idea that a single woman with 1 part-time child is just as much a family as a large multi-generational family. I'm sorry, but it's just not, and I'm tired of being the bad guy about it. Now for the top comments. Wow, you're a massive a-hole. I'm a single woman with 1 child. Are we not a family? Were we a family before my son's dad died and now we're not? How does it work in your eyes? You're the a-hole. And to say that to someone's face, you're an even bigger a-hole. Jeez, I'm sorry for your loss. But seriously, is me and my boyfriend of almost 2.5 years living together with our dog and cat not family? Because I'm sorry, but if you ask me, my boyfriend, our dog, and our cat are my only family. So Opie, does that not qualify as family? Am I totally without a family because A, we aren't married, B, we have no kids? You're the a-hole. You just butchered the little girl's feelings. And no, I don't care if she's a teenager. You're the adult and she's the child. She is a little girl. Way to make her feel crappier about what semblance of family she has considering her dad married a wicked stepmother. You're the a-hole. You're dripping with malice and condescension. Have you tried minding her own business about her cleaning service and work hours, and maybe being a pleasant person? Precisely. Work hours don't mean she does nothing else. A commute, extracurriculars for their kid, voluntary work, hobbies, other family commitments. Also, if she doesn't like cleaning, then why not pay someone if you have money? Especially when it's clearly not squalor by her own admission. Basically, the step-kid doesn't want to clean up after the 11 people who made the mess? Way to alienate your partner's kid. You're the a-hole. You don't get to gatekeep what a family is. What a trashy thing to say to a child. And for the record, 11 people living in a house of undisclosed size, but there's not that many houses that can actually hold 11 people, is called overcrowding. You need to get out of your delusional headspace if you truly think your household is normal. It's definitely not. I will happily live in my 3-person household. Sounds a hell of a lot better than living with such a miserable, spiteful, judgmental person as you. It could explain Opie's attitude. Am I to be this grumpy too with a constant 11 people in my space? Am I the a-hole for my response when my mother-in-law threatened to not show up to my wedding? I'm a 33-year-old doctor, pediatrician, and I'm getting married to my fiancé this November. I have a somewhat controlling mother-in-law, and wedding planning has been an absolute nightmare so far. Okay, here's the situation. My fiancée doesn't have an income because of her medical situation, but she'll go back to work later. So therefore, I'm financing the entire wedding. I've set a specific budget for the wedding and honeymoon, and planned for everything. Date, guests, food, etc. Mother-in-law wanted things her way, and made a fuss about everything since that's her only daughter. I found out she and her husband found a venue they wanted us to have the wedding at. But the problem is, A, it's very expensive, and B, it's several towns away. My family even said they'd have to drop out if I choose this venue. So I told mother-in-law I don't want it. She kept trying to convince me. It made so much fuss about it to the point where she made it her hill to die on. I kept saying no to her, and she kept insisting. I got home from work on Tuesday and found mother-in-law, father-in-law, and a couple of her relatives there, visiting when there was no one home. She started talking about it again while I was resting on the couch taking my socks off. I said, hold on, who the hell starts a conversation like that? I just sat down for Christ's sake. Let me catch my freaking breath, will you? But that didn't stop her. She sternly said that her daughter deserves to have her wedding at that venue, and that I'm a doctor, I can afford it, and distance was just an excuse. She said she made a reservation by phone, and I had to pay for it within set time, while pointing at me with her finger, which I thought was rude and very, very disrespectful, followed by or else. I asked, or else what? And she said that if I choose any other venue, then she won't attend the wedding. I didn't budge like she thought I would. I just leaned forward and said, all right. I guess the trash took itself out then. The entire house was silent. Complete shutdown. She stood up and called me disrespectful at the POS to expect her to take my insults as gospel. It argued that I was being a cheapskate. But I replied that she was acting like a gold digger, and that she needed to sit down and shut up and let me and my fiancé handle this, or just go home. She started crying, then walked out, and everyone followed. Father-in-law was this close to spit in my face. My fiancé found out and said I disrespected her mom and treated her like crap. I explained how unreasonable her mom was with her demands and total lack of consideration for me, my hard-earned money, and family. She said she was going to settle this with her without my intervention, but honestly, it blew her mind how low I stooped with how I treated her mom. She wanted some time alone, because she is thinking I might be someone else hiding behind a mask with how I behaved, which hurt me to no end. I think I messed up. I just think I should have waited my fiancé to deal with it, but I felt overwhelmed when she spoke to me like that. Now for the top comments. Not stay home. And if your partner isn't going to stick up for you and her mother is outright harassing you, you may want to reconsider the marriage. I sure as hell would be reconsidering the marriage. Her parents broke into their house with a posse to stage an intervention about a location, and OP is the problem? I'd at the minimum be putting the whole thing on hold. Sure, OP was blunt in his response, but I wouldn't say it was unwarranted at that point. Not stay home. Exactly right with putting the wedding on hold. Time to establish a firm boundary that OP is not going to be pushed around. Also time to set a firm expectation with the fiancé that OP expects her to have his back. Finally, if/when the wedding goes ahead, make sure to have passwords established with all the vendors/venue, so mother-in-law can't change things. That is, cancel OP's venue. Not stay home. Your fiancé's attitude is setting the stage for your entire marriage. You should seriously reconsider whether you want to live with this type of behavior for the rest of your life, or however long your marriage might last. If you go through with it, please consider a prenup agreement if you already have assets in place. Not stay home. Get out now and cut your losses. It's not worth it. Next story. Am I the a-hole for calling my friend a homewrecker? Backstory. My friend's 21 female family was completely destroyed by her father having a mistress when she was 14. My cousins are getting married, both related to me. They're not related to each other. And my cousin Steve, 27 male, is bisexual and is getting married to Tom, 31 male, who is gay. I live with Alice, who is the friend in this. Alice is incredibly flirty with almost anyone she sees, which is fine. I'm not judging her for that. She has flirted with both Steve and Tom at some point during the time they have known Alice. I came home one day to Alice practically screaming. I asked what was wrong, and she showed me her phone while still crying/screaming. On her phone, she had Facebook Messenger open and had a bunch of messages from Tom. I won't type them out word for word because they were not polite. But turns out Steve had slept with Alice, and now the wedding is off. I was sure this was a misunderstanding because Steve was devoted to Tom, and I know what happened to Alice's family, so I calmed her down to get her side of the story. She told me that she was at a bar and saw Steve. They got talking over some drinks and she and him hooked up in a hotel room. I was mad. I asked her why did she do that, and she said, he is bi. Why are you surprised? I went ballistic. I called her a homewrecker for sleeping with someone she knows is in a relationship. She went back to screaming and crying, and basically said I was betraying her. I replied, the only one here that is betrayed is Tom, and you became no better than your father's side piece. She screamed some more and I left to go to sleep at my parents'. I woke up to so many messages, including Alice, saying I was an a-hole for using Alice's trauma to hurt her badly. My parents are on my side, and my mom said I should have known, given how Alice acts around people, that I haven't heard from Steve or Tom at all. So am I the a-hole? Should I have kept my mouth shut and just be there for Alice? Edit. Since a lot of people are repeating what has already been said, I'm gonna use an edit to make a blanket statement. I 100% also blame Steve, but I'm getting radio silent from him, so I can't have the I blame you to talk. Not stay home. She brought this on herself and has no right to play the victim when she actively went after each of them at different times in their relationship, and then managed to sleep with one of them. How is it that she's the one who was traumatized when she knew exactly what she was doing and still did it? Did she honestly think it was okay to sleep with a guy in a relationship because he was marrying another guy and was himself bisexual? His sexuality is not a free pass for her to sleep with him when he was in a committed relationship of any kind. Would she have done that if he had been about to marry a woman? Did she think it wasn't the same as her family because there were no kids involved yet? She is the a-hole and an idiot. No, Alice made this mess and has no one to blame but herself and Steve. As my new favorite saying from Reddit goes, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. The bi remark pisses me off because we have 2 people in our mutual friend group who are bi too. So how does she think of them? Also, I've had a few bi partners, and while none of them lasted, it was never due to cheating. Not stay home. Your friend talks about her trauma, but legit just did what the other woman did to her family. If it was so traumatic, she wouldn't or shouldn't have done it. The only people in this that aren't the a-hole are you and Tom. Thank you. This is exactly how I feel. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for not giving my brother a heads up that he wouldn't be my son's godfather? My brother and I were close growing up. He was the big brother who didn't treat his baby sister like she was the most annoying person on the planet, while I treated him like a person and didn't expect him to cater to me all the time. That changed when he started dating his wife. She and I have a long history. She was the school mean girl, and while she changed a lot, she still had issues with me because I was the kid who stood up to her when we were kids. I didn't let her treat my friends like crap, and she hated that she couldn't get under my skin. In my high school yearbook, she told me to go screw myself. My brother always said she had fully changed, but nah. He wanted me to let go of the past and move forward in hopes she would let it go. We had always said when we had kids, we would make each other the godparent, which for our family just means they are the people you choose to raise your kid if something happens to you. Well, I had my son a year ago, and I did not ask my brother to be a godparent. I refused to let his wife be his godparent, and I would sooner see him raised by strangers than raised by her. We chose my husband's sister and her significant other. My brother is heartbroken that we didn't pick him, and that I didn't warn him. I figured saying nothing would be easier, because it's not like we're as close anymore. But he says this is just me being unreasonable regarding his wife, and the fact she doesn't even get an aunt title around my son is terrible. And the fact I would pass over him as a godfather because of her shows that I am immature and that I turned into the mean girl. He told me my hatred for her is irrational. He's trying to bring our family into this, but they're staying out of it. But I know they all wish I would leave the past in the past. I feel bad for hurting him, but at the same time, I have been clear with him before that I will not welcome his wife into my life more than I already have had to. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. I hear nothing here about sister-in-law reaching out to you to demonstrate that bygones are bygones and that she has changed, or forming any sisterly relationship with you or bonding with your son that would indicate she would be interested in a godmother role. If you gave it to a couple that both have a good relationship with you and your son, that's your choice. Even if things had been okay with sister-in-law, by the way, that doesn't automatically mean your brother should get picked over your husband's sister. Lastly, to be honest, this sounds a bit unfair on your part. If your sister-in-law is not allowed to be called aunt to your son, they should have clued them up, surely? I'm going to say not the a-hole. As an adult and parent, you're not obligated to put your child in a situation you're uncomfortable with. You should have talked to your brother beforehand, though. Negative surprises are worse than positive ones, and not the most adult way to deal with things. You didn't give any examples of why you think she hasn't changed, but as adamant as you are, I assume you have observations to validate your stance. First time we met again, she tried to get under my skin. She made a comment about how we were going to be sisters and how funny life was. I told her we were not sisters. They weren't even engaged at the time. And she asked how my family would feel about that. I told her they could feel how they want. She told me I wasn't going to win, whatever that means. My brother told me we would be sort of sisters. She also asked my family how much it sucked that I would call her my sister, and were they disappointed in me. I didn't even look in her direction when she said it. She also bugged me about seeing the message from my yearbook. I told her I didn't keep mine, then went to my brother about it. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to give my son his father's name? My boyfriend and I have been together for 2 years. I have a 4-year-old daughter from a previous relationship, and I'm 37 weeks pregnant with my second child, his first. My daughter's father and I were engaged, and when she was born, she took his last name. Shortly after, and in the following year, he decided he was tired of working and being an adult. So he quit his job, started strategically investing in Bitcoin, and when he lost all of his money, he started selling drugs behind my back. One day, I walked into the spare bedroom and he was smoking heroin. He broke down and told me everything, so I filed a protective order and left him. He is not involved in my daughter's life. It hasn't been in over 3 years. However, he has fought me tooth and nail in court to avoid changing her surname. My son with my boyfriend is due in 3 weeks. My boyfriend is the exact opposite of my ex and works incredibly hard to provide for us. As a team, I also work 2 jobs that I pay half the bills plus my daughter's care. However, he has been incredibly hands-off throughout my pregnancy. He has refused to attend doctor's appointments with me. He's freaked out by the baby kicking. I did a 3D ultrasound as a late birthday/Father's Day gift at 27 weeks, and he was taken aback and said, "Don't ever do something like that again." He looks underdeveloped, and it freaks me out. Given all of that, a myriad of other factors, and the fact that he is vehemently opposed to the idea of getting married anytime soon, I've been seriously questioning staying in this relationship anyway. One thing he has kind of been obsessing over is the fact that the baby is a boy, and passing on his name. We picked a first name that I absolutely love, and he wants to give him his first name and his middle name, and his surname. I have been going through this pregnancy virtually alone, and quite frankly, I have earned a right to name my baby over what he wants. So I brought this to him today, that I will be naming our son with the first name we agreed on. My father's name as his middle name and my last name. He didn't take it well at all. He immediately wanted to know why, and I told him how alone I've felt through this pregnancy, how little he has contributed, and how I don't want to be in another situation where my children don't share my last name. He's now laying down in our bedroom. He has been for 4 hours. It won't say anything to me. So, am I the a-hole for taking my son's paternal lineage away from him? I know I'm going to be the primary, if not the sole, caretaker of this baby, and I don't want to be the mom with 2 kids and 3 last names. Not the a-hole. If your boyfriend wants some paternal lineage, then he better start acting parental. You aren't married, and he isn't taking responsibility for the life he helped create. The straight edge. It was my ex who was the addict. My boyfriend isn't an a-hole necessarily, but he's incredibly distant. Not the a-hole. If all he can contribute is a name, he really isn't much of a father or partner. Why did you choose to have a child with yet another emotionally unavailable man? I agree. You need to get it together. You deserve better for yourself and your children. Don't get pregnant with a boyfriend. Wait until you have a husband. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for deciding what food I want to be served on my wedding? My fiancé and I are about to get married next 3 months. I wanted to have these dishes on my wedding: shrimp, stuffed crabs, and some grilled meat. We also included fruits, drinks, and pasta. While we are busy accomplishing our wedding must-haves, I heard from my dad that my stepmother is upset about how I'm obviously telling her that I don't want her in my wedding because of my decisions. She said that if I cared about her, then I would have taken notes that 1, she is allergic to shrimp, and 2, she is vegan. My dad advised that we should cater for vegan options. I don't know much about these types of dishes, nor how to make vegan versions of other foods. What I only know is that vegans eat salad, fruits, and anything without animal meat. So I approached her and informed her that we did include fruits and drinks to the menu. I offered to reserve a single bowl of salad just in case fruits aren't her thing. She then told me that I'm a witch for only offering her fruits and salads, and that if I really cared, then I would have searched for more food options and not just feed her grass. I was willing to take out and reserve a restaurant-made solo dish, but her attitude towards me made me think that she doesn't deserve to be in my wedding. I don't know whether I should spend time researching on where to buy takeout vegan dishes or simply serve what I can give. I am not vegan, but why are there no veggie side dishes? Something as simple as stuffed peppers or zucchini boats would be simple for people who want something besides meat, fish, and fruit. Agree. Her attitude is poor, but it always baffles me that things like this become a big issue at weddings. It's Sophie's stepmother, so she probably knew she was vegan. Why not reach out to the caterer and ask if they can accommodate a meal for vegans/vegetarians or those with allergies? No fuss, no issues. Doesn't impact the menu that the bride/groom wants either. Also, to be fair, fruit, a drink, and a side salad isn't a reasonable meal. Everyone sucks here. She's overreacting but has a valid point, and you are not being very thoughtful at all. Offering just fruit and salad is very insulting, and I'm not even vegan. 2/10 for effort. Think again. So I approached her and informed her that we did include fruits and drinks to the menu. I offered to reserve a single bowl of salad just in case fruits aren't her thing. You're the a-hole.
I'm pregnant and my husband has been sleeping with my mother. Plus update. I 26 female, found out my husband 30 male is hooking up with my mother 52 female, and I honestly don't know how to react. I'm 4 months pregnant, and I'm trying not to stress since it's bad for the baby. I honestly had suspicions about my husband cheating. When I announced my pregnancy, he seemed happy, over the moon actually. He was kissing me and telling me how lucky he was to have me, but now he changed. About 2 weeks after my surprise announcement, he stopped hugging me and kissing me like usual. He stopped eating the meals I'd make for him after work and said he already ate some fast food or something. I also noticed he had changed his lock screen, which was a picture of us, not sure if that meant anything to be honest. I found out 3 days ago. I went through his phone while he was in the shower and found text messages, videos, pictures. I'm sick to my stomach thinking about what I saw. I saw pictures of my mom in lingerie, and he was replying with pictures as well, showing how turned on he was. I even saw a message of regret. He had said that maybe they should stop since he didn't want to hurt me, but my mom said I wouldn't get hurt as long as they kept it all a secret. But what angered me the most was the message she sent a few days ago. I'll quote it here so anyone reading this can get an idea of how serious their affair is and has been. I love you so much, more than you think. You've helped me through the passing of my beloved ex-husband, and for that I truly thank you. I know it is hard for you to keep a secret like this, for me it is too. I love my daughter with all my heart, but she will have to accept eventually that love is love, and that the heart wants what it wants. Our hearts want each other. I thought that ever since my husband died, nobody would ever love me because I'm just an old woman, but you have shown me to love myself and made me feel young and sexy again. Let's keep having fun and cherishing each other. I think it's important to know my father passed away about 5 years ago from a stroke, and my mother said she refused to get back into dating or romance because my father is her forever love, and only. It's absolute BS. I'm freaking crushed, and it's the fact that I know they hooked up after that message, because that was the night he didn't come home until 1 in the morning due to work and paid overtime. I actually threw up after reading that message. I have screenshots of the messages and have sent the videos to myself. Of course, I deleted them on his phone so it looked like he never sent me anything. But I'm numb. I'm confused. I'm hurt so bad. I can't even cry because I refuse to believe it. My husband is at work while I'm sitting on the edge of my bed writing this. Any advice, please? I'm desperate for just a little bit of anything, really. This baby in me is honestly the only thing preventing me from confrontation. I'm afraid that confronting them now will cause too much stress and anger, and I want the best for my child. At this point, all I want to do is have my baby. Christmas is soon, and I don't want to ruin it for the family. I had also planned on announcing my pregnancy to everyone that day. Please help me. Now for the top advice before reading the update. Contact a lawyer. Organize your finances. Map out a game plan. If there is someone you can trust, maybe move in with them. Don't keep this to yourself. Once you know what you're going to do, leave or kick him out. Let everyone know what has been going on. Do not let them get away with this. Get a lawyer and get full custody or primary in place. Your mom and baby dad are gonna fill that kid's head up with BS. Protect yourself. Any lawyer will gleefully take your case. You even have proof. They are both disgusting and do not love you as they claim. Expose both of them and see how strong their love for each other is. Do not keep their secrets. But before confronting, first talk to a lawyer. This is a massive betrayal, and I am sorry you are going through this. Make sure you have all your ducks in a row. But seriously, your mom sounds like a terrible human being. Your husband sounds sorta like he was getting manipulated by her. Not saying he doesn't suck, but that mom seems manipulative as hell. Wow, your mother loves you with all her heart, yet she's sleeping with your husband. You don't need that witch or that lowlife husband in your life. Just break free and be happy with your baby. With all her heart. She never specified how much heart she has. And now for the update. Thank you all so much for the support. Really, you don't understand how much it means to me to see so many strangers online wishing me well. Around 2 hours ago, I confronted my husband when he came home from work. I told him that I know everything. I showed him the pictures and messages. At first he denied it, but when I showed him the evidence, he started crying. Crying. Actually crying. He had the nerve to cry and get on his knees while holding and caressing my stomach. He told me that I would be a bad mother if I left him and raised my child without a father because a baby needs a dad in their life to fully grow mentally and physically. I honestly don't know what to say at that, except that it's pure BS. I told him that I was contacting a lawyer in order to file for divorce. I had already packed my things before he came home. I'm currently staying at a local motel about 30 minutes away from my home. I've asked my cousin if I can stay with her for a few days, and she agreed. I'm getting everything sorted from there. My husband has been blowing up my phone with messages and apologies. He's told me that if I take him back, he won't do anything to hurt me ever again, and he will cut all ties with my mother. As for her, I've also confronted her. I messaged her once I got to my motel. I told her I was pregnant and that she will never get to see her grandchild. She has not responded yet. I have also moved all my finances that I had in our shared bank account to my personal savings account. You don't understand how grateful and appreciative I am for the support. I apologize that I could not reply to all the personal messages I've been receiving as well. It's been hell. I'll try my best to update if my mother does end up replying to me. Again, thank you all so much. Next story. Update. My 37 male, son 21 male, slept with my girlfriend 32, and I don't know how to process this level of betrayal. Original post. I apologize in advance if this isn't the most coherent thing in the world. This is partially just me venting to the void. About 4 years ago, I lost my wife, the mother of my son, to lung cancer. We had been together since we were 14. It was the darkest time in my life. I had considered ending it all on a nearly daily basis. I pushed on for my son, and because my wife made me promise to make the most of life. We had our son pretty young. I worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat, and thankfully was able to provide a decent upbringing until he moved out at 16, although I still paid, and continued to do so until this happened, a portion of his bills. The loss was extremely hard on my son as well. He came back to stay with me for a while, and we'd work through the grief together every day. I got him into therapy, pushed him to get involved in things to keep his mind busy, and when he moved back into his apartment, I'd call every night to check on him and visited multiple times a week. We were always extremely close. My wife told me outright after her diagnosis that she didn't want me alone, so I made myself available. My girlfriend and I met about 2 years ago and hit it off. She isn't my wife, but I loved her for who she was, and we really connected. I was reluctant to introduce her to my son because I was afraid he'd feel I was betraying his mother, so I held off for the first year, which I regretted as they ended up getting along very well. We'd hang out together, my son was happy, I was happy, and she moved in with me about 5 months ago. This past Thursday he was over for dinner and movies. We've had this little game since he was a teenager where I'd pop up over his shoulder when he was on his phone in common areas and say, "Stop looking at that," in an accusing way to mess with him, even though he was never looking at anything. Turns out this time, he was doing something, and I saw topless photos on his phone. I recognized the photos to be of my girlfriend, same tattoo placement between the breasts. I grabbed the phone from him, and he immediately starts pleading his case. I go into gallery, and there are easily 24 photos of my girlfriend, some of him I'm assuming he sent to her, 1 or 2 of them together. By this time, he's crying and trying to grab the phone back. I check his texts and he has 2 weeks worth of conversations with her under a different name, detailing the fact they've been fooling around behind my back. My girlfriend is in the room begging to know what's going on. I'm not proud of the fact that I lost myself. I screamed at them both. I smashed the phone. Yes, I know this is unacceptable. Yes, I'm in therapy. Yes, it's the first time I got aggressive with either of them. Then I demanded details. My son kept apologizing and saying he didn't know why and that it had only started 2 weeks ago. They slept together 3 times. My girlfriend was sobbing and kept trying to hug me, telling me it was a mistake, purely physical, and that she'd never speak to him again. I screamed at my son that I'd given my life to him, that he knew what this meant to me, that he was all I had left. I pulled him upstairs and gave him the money for his phone, and kicked him out. I went upstairs to our bedroom, turned her drawers upside down and packed her clothes into 2 travel bags while she kept asking me to listen. I put them outside, guided her through the door, and told her she could have someone else get the rest of her belongings this week. Both of them have been texting me nonstop until last night, at which point I blocked their number. I feel completely detached. The fact that after 2 years, my girlfriend, knowing my history, could betray me is painful enough, and absolutely nothing will make me forgive her. She refuses to get her stuff until I talk to her, so I'm having a friend drop it off to her. The fact my son, who I dropped everything for, worked nonstop to provide for, who was all I had left in this world, could do this to me, knowing what it would do, is another pain entirely. It feels like I lost another family member. I ache for my wife all over again. I know everyone processes grief differently, but this was 2 years after her passing. He had a girlfriend and I was there for him as were therapists, every step of the way, so I have a hard time believing grief is the cause of his decision. I can't see this as a mistake. He didn't trip and fall. It was a conscious choice to betray someone who loved him. I want to honor my wife by giving my son a chance to hold on to the little family I have left. But this isn't like he stole money from me. It isn't even something that happened once while drunk. He was there for that grief with me. He knew how hard it was for me to move on. Of all the women, he chose mine. All the apologies or future effort can't erase that fact or the memory of it. I never did wrong by him, and now I feel like the kid I raised isn't there anymore. Thanks to friends, I'm not drifting into thoughts of self-harm again, but I don't know if I have it in me to ever forgive him. If and when that day comes, what steps can I take to process what happened? Do I talk to him without feeling disgust and open the door to trusting him again? And if that day never comes, does that make me a bad person? Edit some brief clarification since people on the other relationship sub took this and ran with it. 1. Nothing caused him to move out. He asked and said it'd be cool, and I helped pay his bills. No hidden resentment I've ever been aware of. 2. Yes, popping up over his shoulder sometimes was something we both found funny. No, I wasn't actually trying to invade his privacy. Yes, he was a part of the joke. 3. Yes, I know I was aggressive. I paid for the phone and will be discussing it in therapy. Now for the top advice before reading the update. I am so sorry this happened to you. I think you handled things pretty well, all things considered. Obviously, your ex is somebody you should ever speak to again. Your son is 21, so he was making adult decisions, and this did not just happen once. I would honestly give this a lot of time, and probably some counseling to figure out where you want to go in terms of your relationship with him. Thank you. I know in my heart I want my son in my life. I don't think it's possible for me to stop loving him, but I don't much like him right now, and unfortunately my mind isn't in agreement with my heart. I'm not sure I can forgive this, but I hope that with effort and time, the rawness will at least fade enough to allow us to move past it and create new memories together. When I cool down enough, I'll suggest joint therapy to him, as I know I'm not ready to discuss it calmly without a mediator present. And I also expect him to inform his girlfriend of what he did, or I will, as she was also betrayed and deserves to know. It's going to be a long road, and my get up and go has pretty much gotten up and left by this point, but I'm trying to be optimistic. My uncle got in a terrible divorce, and to cope, began dating a girl who was aged closer to me. Over several months, she had been coming on to me, and when my uncle and her had an argument, she tried getting me to sleep over for a night. I was clearly aware of what the risk, my relationship with my uncle, also damaging his well-being, and benefit, sleeping with one girl was. Your son should have been able to comprehend the significance of his actions too. I would question him on this, because he willingly jeopardized his relationship with you and struck your well-being. Now for the update. First off, I'd like to thank everyone for the enormous outpouring of support. I've had numerous people offering to their well wishes privately, and such compassion from those who commented. I believe it was this support, as well as that from my friends, that kept me from doing anything stupid. I'll try to keep this as concise and short sentenced as possible. It's been a busy couple of days to say the least. I unblocked both their numbers shortly after posting. My now ex called again that night, which I answered. I told her if she wasn't calling to make plans to pick up her stuff, I was hanging up, and we decided on the next morning. I called a platonic female friend of mine that night, and she agreed to be at my place before my ex showed up as a witness. I had everything packed up and waiting by the door. She showed up as expected and started crying immediately when I came out with her stuff, trying to pull the bags to the ground so I'd have my hands free for a hug. I put the bags beside her car and asked her to check if I missed anything, which she refused. I agreed to a quick hug, told her to take care, and walked inside. My friend then pulled the chair she was sitting in on my porch over so it was in front of my door, and told her that she was calling the cops if she didn't leave. She did, and I blocked her number again. I texted and called my son numerous times and left a voicemail telling him that we needed to talk, but first he had to come clean to his girlfriend and accept responsibility for his actions. He didn't respond, so I called her myself. We chatted for a while, and she told me he was out with a friend. I asked if he had spoken to her about anything recently, and she said no. So I told her myself. Mostly because I felt it was the right thing to do, as she was a victim in this too, but I'll admit partially because he's a grown man now and needs to deal with the consequences. He showed up to my place that evening, and I let him in. I'm ashamed to say I wasn't nearly as calm as I hoped I'd be. He asked if ruining his relationship made me feel better, and I told him that he ruined it. Pretty much any hope of productive conversation went out the window, and it became a screaming match, at which point I told him to get out and figure out how to deal with being as alone as I was. He slapped me in the head. This is a kid who never even threw a toy out of anger in childhood, who wasn't even spanked. And as disgusting and twisted as it is, this exploded into a physical fight, with me being struck in the face multiple times while trying to restrain him as I didn't have it in me to hit him. My son very much not being a fighter, while in my younger years I very much was. Until I took him off his feet and held him to the floor. I've never felt that level of rage before, how incredibly overwhelming it was. When I saw the fear on his face, I let him up and sat beside him on the floor. I told him to get out. He started crying and told me that his mother would be ashamed of him. This made me break down, pathetically so, and realize how messed up this whole thing has been. I agreed that she'd be ashamed of both of us, and we hugged while he cried into my chest, something he hasn't done since my wife passed. He asked if it was too late to talk, and I told him it wasn't. I cleaned myself up, we sat at the kitchen table and talked. He told me that he'd stopped therapy a while ago and lied about it, because he felt it wasn't helping. He told me that he was hurt when I kept my girlfriend from him the first year, because although he knew it was to prevent him getting attached if it didn't work out, he still felt excluded. It came out that he hid a very well-concealed alcohol problem from me, and even his girlfriend. He told me he didn't sleep with her to spite me, that he was just feeling lost and he made a stupid choice. I asked him why he couldn't have been honest with me before it came to this, and he told me he didn't feel like he could be honest with himself anymore. We cried together again, prayed together despite neither of us being religious, looked through family photo albums together. We discussed the road forward, and we agreed that the loss we both felt went far deeper than we thought. We decided on attending therapy together. We're going to look into support groups both for his drinking and other families dealing with loss. And now that he's without his girlfriend and I'm aware of the extent of his issues, I agreed to let him move back home with me, so I can make sure he attends his appointments and avoid alcohol, and hopefully so we can bond again, with the stipulation that any more violence and he's out the door. He asked me if I can ever forgive him, and I told him honestly that I couldn't, but he's still my son and I love him. And I reminded him of what his mother told him when he was a kid, that everyone messes up, it's what you do afterwards that makes the difference. I'll never forgive what he did, but if he learns from this and becomes a better person, then I can forget it and have a great relationship with him regardless. Aside from the fact my lip resembles the mouth of the vampires from Blade 2 for now, which has prompted concern from neighbors and friends, the past 2 days have been great. We've been talking, we cooked dinner together, we've gone on walks, and we're set to start looking into professional help this coming week. He's incredibly apologetic and has a tenderness I haven't seen from him in years. I have no illusions about the amount of work to be done nor how serious this incident was, but I'm feeling very optimistic about the future. I'm going against grain here, but I don't think letting a person like that move into your home is a good idea. Chances are you are going to regret it and it will be hard to get rid of him. I have a tendency to stand by my word, and I made it very clear to him that if another incident like this occurs, I'll have the police remove him. That said, I have faith in my son. Part of the blame lays on my shoulders for giving him too much credit at too young an age, thinking that because we always had a stable relationship that he would automatically handle the grief he was going through appropriately, or turn to me for help unprompted. I was there for him, but I took his honesty at face value, when I should have ensured his stability. The pain of the betrayal came mostly because I didn't understand why it happened. Now that I know, I can see a road to fixing it. By no means is him staying here unconditional, nor have I written off his choices. He needs to do a lot of work on himself, and I'm going to make sure he does. But assuming he puts in the effort, then so will I if it took a busted lip and some heartache to get my kid to become a better man and find happiness. I can endure that.